Layout progress. G'day guys and welcome back to Leila Central. My name's Clint, your average modeler, and today I am discussing track work. So in relation to track work, I'm at the point where I'm actually, as you can see by all these lines, marking down my track, and combine that with old markings from old track that I've put down. You can see it's quite a bit of a mess. Believe it or not, though, I can actually see things. Now, one of the things that I have recently discovered was my initial plan, which was for Brinklow to go right here, actually should not have gone here. It's supposed to go around further, going off track diagram, and I can thank Uncle Google and Google Earth for that. If I didn't know that, didn't actually look it up, etc., I would have made a bit of a blue where both stations would have been backwards, and that wouldn't have gone down too well. Anyway, so as a result of it, Shilton Station is going to be here, and over on the far side, Brinklow will actually be there. Now, in relation to Shilton Station, the station itself will be marked properly. Now, this area here is essentially the road that goes over the actual bridge. The bridge that goes over the rails. We do have 4 lines. These are marked in red here, and the arrows indicate which direction. So, for example, these are the 2 down lines. This is the up line, and this is the slow. Express down line, and this is the slow down line, usually commonly used for goods. Going across here, etc. Now, it might be a bit hard to see and understand where all this is, but once I get my track underlay, and I'll show you guys again, and then you'll make a bit more sense out of it. So anyway, so we've got essentially our line sitting over here as mentioned. Here's the goods line, or basically where the freight comes in for Shilton as well, right along here. Now, just to compare it, this is the plan of Shilton Station. So this area here, where the bridge actually goes across, that is this area right here. So I've measured the road out, put it across. Now the station will be to scale, so we're going to have our platforms in here as well. There's the goods line right here. As you can see, it goes quite a long way, then it converges into the main line. Again, as per the actual track plan itself, the down loop or the slow goods loop, you've got a bit of siding here. Here it converges back in. There's the actual siding, and again, as you can see, I've got some nice big curves going around. So if you have a look at that actual, first off, look at the plan. See how it curls around the actual station platform. So having a look at the down line here, as you can see, this is where the plane turnout will be, and then there's the curve that goes around the actual platform. So I'm going to have to do a curved platform. I'm up for the challenge. Now, as you can see, it does go quite close to the edge here, but that's no problem because I do plan to extend the layout a little bit, as I discussed previously, probably about out here somewhere, so I can get my bit more scenery in. Now, this is where most of my, as you can see, all these curved lines. As you already know, I like my curves, whether they're on my women or my railway track, and planning these curves has been pretty tedious. I've marked them multiple times, if you can't so already. And this is purely because I've put some lines down, I've looked and looked and looked, stared, had to think about it. Was I happy with it? No. Now, to put it in perspective, these red lines here were my initial lines that I was going to be using as the curve as it goes around to actual Brinklow. Now, I looked at this. So what I'd actually done is the main lines themselves, so 1, 2, 3, these were going to be converging out a little bit and then curling around. Now, this is going to be the tightest part of the layout. Now, what I mean by that is this inner line here would have the tighter radius out of the 3 of them, and this was going to be around 30, I think it was going to be 32 inches radius, and I've looked at it. I kept humming and hawing, and I thought, no, I'm obviously questioning it because I'm not happy. So anyway, things have changed a bit. So instead of the actual curves occurring here, they're going to be starting way back here, and as you can see, in black. So I'm going to have them curling out around again, so I can have them sweeping around and over to here. And this has essentially resulted in around about 1 metre curves, or around about, say, 42-inch radius. I have looked at the outer side one, so this one, not that one there, the black one right here. This one, as you can see, follows around very big sweeping curve, and that one there is essentially around about a 60-inch radius. So that I am happy with now, and now I can actually just lay some track underlay. So as we move over to here, now for those that are actually interested, this is my comprehensive setup in marking my actual curves. This is my tripod that I normally use to mount my camera on to film. As you can tell, I'm doing it by hand because it's in use at the moment. And I've just got a nice big stick of timber that's straight. Got 2 holes marked in the end for my actual pens or markers to go through. And yep, all attached to the tripod here. And then I just essentially use that to pivot around so I get a constant, continuous curve. And that makes me very happy pretty much. So I'll move that out of the way. So once the lines actually go through here, this is the actual main overbridge for Brinklow, and then it will come down to the actual station itself. So for those that aren't familiar with Brinklow, here's the actual station here. Now, as you can see here, this is where the actual road is. This is this bridge right here, or will soon to be bridge. And then it continues along as per the actual track plan. So we've got a bit of a goods yard sitting over here at the moment. So that goods yard is actually way down here. Right here, I've just basically marked in GS for goods shed just to get an idea. And as you can see, a little bit of extra lines unnecessary, but they're there. The paper templates from Pico have been very, very useful. And so then we've got that. And then it all does its big sweeping curve again right around to here, and that's where I'm up to at this stage. Now looking at that, going back around to back to my actual footyard, this is going to be a nice big sweeping curve, so very similar to like this as well. That one is pretty much the same as the one over further, so we're dealing with the mid to high 40s inch radius, so yeah, pretty happy with that. And we'll see how it goes, but I'll lay some underlay and we'll see how she looks, so then you guys can actually get a better idea on how these curves and Brinklow is going to look. But there's an example right there on everything's going to look. So pretty busy at this stage. We'll see you in a sec. Now before I actually lay my track bed, some of you guys have commented on how quiet my trains actually run, and this is the underlay that I use. It's just the Woodland Scenics track roll, and yeah, I've got no issues with it. Creates the elevation, has the beveled edges, of course, to simulate ballast and everything else. And yeah, look, I've been very happy when I've used it in the past, and I continue to use it today. And this is what gives me my cushioning, or you guys have noticed my silent trains that run through at a much more quieter noise. So there you go. Okay, made some very good progress to the track underlay. So what I'll do is I'll start off on this side here, which is Shilton Station. Now, as I mentioned, this was going to be Brinklow. However, due to research with Google and everything else, this is now Shilton. So this will make it quite clear on the actual track plan itself. So here's the actual, essentially, station and everything else that will actually be here. As you can see, I've got a nice big curve over here coming across right around the 2 main lines through here, one up, one down, and the other one over here, which is another down up line. This is the goods yard siding, so as you can see right here, it's actually quite lengthy. Now, back in history, it used to be able to store about 22 wagons, according to the field surveys. Now, this actual station, so all the way from here right down to essentially right about over here, this is all to scale as what it was in the plans. Now, I've been working off these plans right here, which I showed you just before, which is this here. So what I've done, so as you can see here, here's the actual road bridge, which is where the layout will be starting. So from here all the way down to roughly about here is where I've actually going to model it in true scale with the actual feet that's actually measured here. So I've converted these over to the metrics that I use over here. So we're talking centimetres or metres, and also converted it down to 00 scale as well. So hence, when you have a look at this siding here, that is this big fella right here, which goes right along there, as you can see. And as mentioned before as well, when you take a look at this bridge right here, this bridge here will be this fella marked right here. So everything's all marked. As I mentioned, I've got the line out here that's going to curve around, and which again is this big fella right here. So and a small little siding, which I haven't actually stuck down, but you can see the red line there where it's going to actually go. Now, With the curves themselves, as I mentioned before, was very debatable and very questioning the curves that I had. They were quite good, you know, they weren't third or even fourth radius, they were still quite good, but I wasn't happy with them. So what I've actually done is, rather than having the line continue here and then curl around, I've had it essentially peel off a little bit to the left and then actually sweep around. Now the reason for that has been essentially so I could get my bigger radius in, and also when it comes to Brinkley over further, the track needed to be lined up in a certain spot over here. So as we go from here, as you can see, we get our curve, they curl right around, and then we've got our bridge here for Brinkley Station. So here's the plan for Brinkley. So as I mentioned before, this bridge here is this fella right here, and what I've had to do, now the station is modelled, it will be modelled directly to scale. It's going to be modelled directly from here to here in true proper scale. Okay, sorry about that, just had an interruption. So as I mentioned, modelled from here down to here. Now, I could squeeze Brinkley in true scale all the way down to this line here, so the goods yard and everything all around here. However, I had to make a bit of a choice whether I did it all to how I want it and then have a sharp curve going from these three tracks right around, which you'll see further, or cull this down a bit, squash it down a little bit, still have it usable and workable, but allow my big flowing curves in, which I actually chose. So as I mentioned, from here all the way to here will be modelled properly. So we'll go across over to here where I'll get to show you a little bit more normal. So there's my line there, dotted line that says edge of platform. So when you take a look here, you can see my goods central sidings here, as well as this little lip. Now, taking a look at the actual plan itself, you can see here, there's the actual edge. Where is it? There it is. So you can see the edge here of where the platform ends, right here. Now, if we look up straight from there, you should be in line with the goods bit of siding right over here. Now, as I mentioned, I've shortened it up and squashed it up. So this line here should be really continuing all the way over to here. But as I mentioned, I've squashed it down. So, I mean, the track plan is exactly how it is. It's just not to scale. And as I mentioned, they're essentially over here is where my curves actually start, and they sweep around there. Now, again, they're about a 45-inch radius curve. So still quite good. Otherwise, this like crossing right here or turnout would be finishing way over to here. Now, I could get in my third radius curves and everything else, but I thought, nah, don't want it. So I've shortened it up with the station. From its platform here all the way down, or both platforms to the roadway, will be modelled properly and into scale. Same with over here. So essentially from the bridge, there's going to be a bit of a line that goes down to the actual goods areas here themselves. This bit of the wall here is going to probably give me some grief. This siding here does essentially finish here, but I'm looking at this in line with this essential beam, which has been plastered over, and what I'm going to do here. So this I may actually shift out a little bit, just so I can try and disguise this a little bit. So we've got the station right there. Now what I'll do is I'll position the camera in a way so then you can look back at it. And there we go. So it's a decent sized space here. All right, so we keel up here, curls around in the three track main lines, and then I've got the biggest sweeping curve I've ever put in my life, which I'll look from the different directions. Okay, so looking at that direction, so over here's where Brinkley comes in, it sweeps around. So we're talking about a, like I mentioned, 45, 48-inch radius roughly about here. And then this big curve essentially starts way back here and is the biggest curve I've ever had to put in itself. So what I ended up doing there was I actually got some sticks of timber, nailed them to the actual bench, got some flimsy corn flue, and actually bent it slightly so I could get my curves in that I actually wanted. And then essentially it curls around through here and then into the actual footy yard, which I'm currently fiddling with at the moment, trying and organise my track work, my turnouts, and see what I'm going to do here. And we'll get something sorted hopefully, but I'll be able to store 8 coach trains, quite some lengthy goods trains as well, which I'm looking forward to. Now at the moment, you can see this turnout sitting right here. This is where essentially the line or the branch for the cement plant is going to actually be. So we'll start here, curl off, follow essentially this line here for a little patch, and then peel around and end up somewhere in the middle over here somewhere. Now, I reckon that's probably going to be the best option for me. However, the other idea has been that instead of starting this here, I started back way over here in the opposite direction. So coming from here, now this thing might actually curl around and then come at this direction, so where I'm currently standing, which will work. But I'm a bit torn, to be honest, looking at this nice big curve as it goes around into my actual footyard. This will be all open country, and at the moment, looking at it, I want to leave it as it is. I don't want anything peeling off it, but at the same time though, I kind of want my industry. So as you can see, I've got a nice big space there, and like I mentioned, it could either come from here, come out and then curl around and come to about here somewhere, or come from where I'm standing, right here, comes out and goes over to here. So not too sure, got a few options. The other option was obviously continuing along the line here, spreads out, and I'll just extend this out in such a way at a funny angle, comes around to here. So rather than have this big island in the middle, I just have this bit sticking out as well. So got a couple of options. Like I said, I'm a bit unsure what to actually do. Yeah, I mean, there is space for it, but at the same time, I do have a lot of stuff in here. As you can see, it is a bit of a mess with timber and stuff everywhere at the moment. So, but yeah, I'm able to start laying track anyway around this area here down at the stations, and see what we come up with. But let me know your thoughts anyway on what you think I should do in regards to my cement plant. And obviously, thanks for those that have subscribed, and all my new subscribers as well. And hopefully, I'll be getting some track laying done. Whether it's at the stations here, etc., and we'll get some stuff actually happening. So anyway, guys, stay tuned, and thanks for watching. Take care now. Bye.